I really like interesting watches. I get captivated by interesting designs and thoughts and choices, but interesting doesn't always then translate into me liking the watch. This Atlantean 2 by Nove is definitely an interesting watch, but do I actually like it? Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches, and the design of a watch is something that can really grab my attention. But it doesn't mean that I like it. When I look at a watch and I like it, it is generally because of the quality, plus the look, the design, the details, and the on-wrist experience. When you throw in a decent price as well, that's quite good, but it's not really what causes me to like or dislike a watch. But what really captivates me is when a watch does something a little bit different. When it puts extra details into a watch, innovation into a watch, and it just then grabs my attention. But that doesn't always mean that I like it. This watch from Nove is something a little bit special. It is something a little bit special because they're using a bunch of different things which I don't think I'd ever seen before. They're being innovating. They've been trying something different, but they've been doing it in a way that is well done. They've been doing it in a way that presents well and just captivates me. But again, that doesn't mean that I like it. So I'm going to show you this watch in a fair bit of detail today because there's a lot to see. There's a lot of details that I want to point out to you. And I'm going to answer the question, do I actually like this watch? Now I want to say a big thank you to Nove for sending me out this watch. I've been able to wear this watch, own this watch, have this watch in my collection, and now I get to share my experiences with you. But because of that, you would have seen that sponsored icon pop up. And of course, I'm going to leave some links to the website down below. And it is worth checking out the website because this watch that I'm going to show you today, the Atlantean 2, is very interesting with lots of details, but all of their watches have that same theme. Details, innovation, doing something a little bit different. And doing something a little bit different at a higher level. So I want to show you this watch in a lot of detail because there is so much to see. To do that, let's flip the camera. So if you buy one of these Nove Atlantean 2s, you're getting a watch from a micro brand that is made in Switzerland. So it is a Swiss-made watch. It has 300 meters of water resistance. It has a sapphire crystal with AR coating, and it's powered by a Sellita SW200. But it also comes in very good packaging that you are going to be very, very happy that it's going to arrive safe. Because if it doesn't arrive safe in that packaging, I'm just not sure what packaging you would need for a watch to arrive safe. You also get a 2-year warranty and a booklet showing you how to actually use your watch. The watch also came with plenty of spare links. I had to remove one, but then there was these extra 4 included. You also get these little adapters which allow you to wear any other sort of strap with this watch, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about those later. But we're here to look at one of the most interesting and very well made and very well thought out watches that I've sort of experienced in recent time. And you may think this is quite a big watch, listing at 46.8 millimeters and being 15.3 millimeters tall. But as you can see, because it has a lug to lug of only 48.6, that larger size will allow it to fit onto smaller wrists. Now the lug width is actually a little bit not applicable, and I'll describe that and show you why that is as we go along with this video. But it definitely is a substantial watch on the bracelet because it's 184.7 grams. Now at this point, you may think that that is a very large watch, which is why I want to show you this at this point. Look at how it hugs down onto wrist. I've actually never owned a watch that sits down onto wrist as nice as this one. So let's keep that in mind as we talk more about this watch. So where to start? There is so many things to point out and show you on this watch. Well, let's start with some of the basics. It has a matte black dial. On there, there is some printing in white and red telling you that it is Swiss made, has 300 meters of water resistance, and that it is an automatic watch. The Nove symbol there is a sort of applied silver polish, but then there's not really much else on that dial. There's no markings whatsoever. Those numbers that you see there above it are actually not touching. They are on a clear disc that is hovering above that dial. And you'll see those markings, they're not printed on either. they are 3D. Now they're not full lume blocks. You may see on some watches where they're sort of cut out of lume. Nope, there are big 3D sort of applied indices and numbers, but then they have lume on top of them. So not blocks, but still plenty of looms, and I'm going to show you that later. When you look at the hands themselves, they are polished, both the hour, minute, and that second hand. There is a crease running along the center of them, which gives you that bit of flash of sort of sparkle when it hits the light. It's covered by a piece of flat sapphire crystal, and it has a sapphire cyclops there. And just to confirm, the crystal is sapphire, the cyclops is also sapphire, and whilst we have the diamonds flecked out, we can see that the caseback is also sapphire. So this watch starts to become a little bit more interesting as you dive into how some of this operates, because that bezel is actually solid. Those markers, which are the sort of used as your hour markers, and they are sort of what you're looking at when you're trying to tell the time of this watch, are inset into maybe a ceramic sort of black. I'm not really sure what it's actually made out of. Doesn't feel like sapphire, but it feels like a ceramic. It really sort of does feel nice inky black. Has this very fluted sort of bezel side there, and it doesn't move. Nothing moves. Why is it not moving? Well, it's because you have to use this locking mechanism. You pull this lever down, you unlock, and then the magic starts to happen, because you don't move the bezel, you move that sort of clear disc that is hovering above the dial. So that is how you set your timing feature. Now, when you turn the lights off, you firstly see how strong that lume is, but then you see how funky and interesting that dial movement is as you move that bezel. And look how strong that lume is, that it is illuminating my fingers. That is actually one of the strongest looms that I have experienced. Now, what I will say is there is a click in each direction that doesn't quite grab. So it sort of has a one-click lag, but then once it clicks in, it moves nicely. But there seems to be a one-click lag there. So that's a little issue to identify. Doesn't affect the functionality, just something to be aware of. Yeah, see, one click and then starts to move. But it does line up nicely when you actually then line it up. To then lock that bezel in, you lock it and push down the clamp. Now I want to spend a little bit of time on this crown. I think it looks good. It's sort of unguarded, has a really nice knurling to it. It is signed. It is very nice and easy to grab hold of. Partly to do with its size, it's being 7.7 millimeters wide, but it's actually the unscrewing action that I want to point out, because I don't think I've ever had an unscrewing action on a watch that is quite as pleasant as that. It's amazing the feel of it. It just feels really nice. Now this one contains the Sellita SW200, so of course it does have hacking, does also have hand winding, and of course it does also have the quick set date function. But I want you to actually look at the crown tube itself. It's actually part of the crown. Most crowns, when you look at it, there is a crown tube threaded coming out of the case, which then the crown sort of screws onto. This, it's almost the other way around. The crown tube goes into the watch. And that winding, or at least that tightening experience, is very, very pleasant. Tolerances are incredible there. When you come to actually look at the side of the watch and the design of the case, well, that's actually something very different, very funky, and I really like it. And it has a mixture of surfaces, because this is almost, I don't know, like a satinized finish. It's not quite brushed. It's certainly not bead blasted. It's sort of in between. I'm not really sure how to explain that. It has polished underneath on that sort of inner case, Nove written there, which normally is not my favorite feature. I don't generally like writing on the side of a case, but this one, well, it's kind of fits into the design. So I'm not sure, but I don't dislike it. Screws there holding this in. I'm not sure if they are functional or not, but they do aesthetically look good. And of course the other side has that locking mechanism there for that sort of bezel action. And of course that crown that I really, really like. As I mentioned, it has a Sellita SW200 movement in the back there, and you can see it through that sapphire crystal caseback. And it is a really nice looking sort of movement. It is really nice to also see it. And just look how it's been presented as well. Look at the outer section, look at Swiss made. It has the red flag there. It's set down into the case. It has a fluting that goes around that sort of screwed down case back. Yeah, design elements. This watch is all about design elements, it's all about details, and it's also about thought. These design choices haven't been sort of just made off the cuff. These have been designed to make it all fit together. And see the fluting on the bezel there, and then the fluting on the case back there. It almost feels like it sort of continues through the watch. So of course these Sleater movements are a high beat movement, 28,800 vibrations per hour. This one has virtually no beat error, nice healthy amplitude, and running a little bit fast around plus 15 seconds. Now let me show you these lugs because they are very different. They are an integrated style, and you can see they curve down and drop straight away from that case, which is really cool. Integrating the case down into the bracelet itself. And they have a quick release feature, and I'll mention that more shortly. But they're sort of polishing on the outside, brushed in the center, and it has this sort of case sort of design that sort of leads down into it, which is quite nice as well. And the bracelet, it sort of comes across very nice, but it's also quite thin. I think they've tried to reduce the weight a little bit and make it feel a little bit more delicate on wrist because of that. And it sort of works, but I'm going to talk about a bit more about that later too. So as you can see, that is the sort of integrated style there, leaving behind that little area there. And we're going to talk a bit more about that shortly with those other sort of adapters which allow you to wear this watch with other straps. So after taking it off, let's have a quick look at the clasp itself. This, I have to admit, is not one of my favorite styles. I've come across this a couple of times. It does have a good diver's extension. It's very sort of solid. It does come with half links as well, so you can get a reasonable fit. But on the fly, if you need to adjust it, you need to adjust it using this, which is not my absolute preferred, and it doesn't have any micro adjust, so you can't get an exact fit. And I've actually ended up having to wear this one a little bit loose because of that. It also has a friction clasp and an all milled interior. And actually, whilst we've got that bracelet off, let's just have a look at this a little bit closer because I think it presents really well. It's a really good looking case back, really good looking movement, and I just love how they've done that sort of, I don't know, integrated case back. It's just really, really nice. Just a good looking rear of a watch. But let's talk a little bit more about these adapters that already come with quick release spring bars too. So they integrate into the watch head itself, creating a link allowing you to put any strap you want on it. Now this watch didn't come with any spare straps, it just came with the bracelet, and looking on the website, I couldn't see any other bracelet or sort of strap options, so I've ended up using my own. I've actually ended up wearing it on this Vario strap. It's a really nice strap, and I think it gives this watch a really cool look, and it just allows you to wear it with a completely different sort of feature, which is really cool. And see how that integrates nicely? Yeah, just a really nice little added feature. This is something that would be nice to come with many other watches. Even when it's not an integrated case, how amazing would it be to have those on all your watches? And I have to admit, I've actually been wearing this watch on this strap more than on the bracelet. I think it looks absolutely amazing on the bracelet. It really does suit the watch, but I've had a bit of an issue with it. And it's partly to do with the weight of the watch. It has partially to do with the sort of lack of micro adjust. But the issue that I have is that the weight of the bracelet, the weight of the watch head, if I wear the watch for more than an hour or two, it does move down a bit and has ended up hurting my wrist a tiny little bit. And this has not really happened too much before. And as I said, I think it's partially to do with the weight and the lack of that micro adjustment, but that it just has meant that I've ended up wearing it on the strap, which is perfectly fine. It means I wear it a little bit tighter, and because of how it sits down on wrist, it really does tuck down onto wrist. I really like that. I just wish there was maybe some micro adjustment or a different clasp on this one. Which really does then lead me into what do I like about this watch, what don't I like about this watch, and what would I change? And I've actually got a fair amount to say here because there's a lot that I like about this watch. I think it is cool. I like the design. I like the intricate details. I like staring at this watch. They've chosen a great movement. The quality of the watch is absolutely outstanding. I can't really stop myself keep doing this and moving this bezel around because that's just fun. That loom is absolutely incredible. And the action of this crown, that is good. Not so much the winding of the watch, but the actual unscrewing of the watch is actually quite amazing. I'm also really impressed by the innovation that they've used. They've used different thoughts, different features. Love those integrated adapters. a really interesting and fun watch, and a watch that I also actually like. But there are some things that I probably don't love. I don't like how it has hurt my wrist when I've been wearing it on the bracelet. I guess I could wear it a little bit tighter, which would stop that, but I don't like wearing watches super tight, so that has stopped me doing that. I'm also not a big fan of this clasp, which kind of works into that as well. I think a different style of clasp would be my preference. I think the Cyclops as well is not actually needed. I'm not a big Cyclops fan, however, so perhaps that is part of my reasoning behind this, but I think there's a lot going on with this dial. There's a lot going on with the technology and the sort of innovations and the design elements. I think that might be just something added that is not required. And actually telling the time, because you have to kind of use these lume pips to denote the hours, and there's no minute track. So actually defining an exact time is a little bit difficult. And if you were going to use this as a dive watch and use this as a countdown, it's not going to give you an exact minute unless it's within that 20 minutes. So it's probably not the most usable watch as a dive watch either. But overall, I think it is an absolutely amazing watch, interesting, innovative, and fun. And I've enjoyed wearing it. I've actually been wearing this watch a lot. But let's flip back to me and see if I've got anything else to say about this one. So after seeing that watch in that much detail, you may be considering buying one for yourself. And that if that is the case, you need to know that this watch costs 1,330 Australian dollars. And it's available in a couple of different colors. The black that I've shown you, blue and green. So this watch overall has really impressed me. I really like it. I find it very interesting details, and I find it fun. I find myself looking at the watch, feeling the watch, moving the watch, and I've also found myself wearing this watch. But there are a few things that definitely I think could be improved. Thank you again to Nove for letting me experience this watch. It is so nice to experience watches that you would only ever see in pictures otherwise. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Maybe you want to check these videos out next.